May I extend a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Sultan, and I don't know how Pervez, Tahir and Nabil have conspired to bring me here. I'm not an economist. I know nothing about economics. So I will hand it over to Pervez. What do you want to say?
Thank you, Sultan. You are the most relevant person for today's, what is it, seminar? Whatever.
Book launch.
Because, like John Robinson, you also want to see people at the center of development. And as you are known, the man with the hand going to the grassroots. That is what John Robinson, in the case of developing countries, was all about. Students, faculty, guests, Vice Chancellor. Vice Chancellor, it is actually a continuation of what you did last time. You invited Adil Najam, who threw around a lot of books at students who have forgotten books. And he was, all around the place trying to sort of cover up ideas or talk about ideas before people who, unlike John Robinson, know math and econometrics. John Robinson, students at the back, any of you had heard of John Robinson before this seminar? Okay, that's very good. And any of you remember any of her books? See? The time has come for the books and ideas. And that's why we chose this book launch to be, let's say, to be provocative, let's say. Where do I begin? Because a person like John Robinson is all around and in every field. So where do you begin? I think we should begin from the beginning. She, in 1920s, went to school, studied history, and then came up to Girton College, which was a women's college at Cambridge, and registered for the Cambridge Tripos. And, for the time that she was there, she was always trying to question things and was interested. She had shifted from history to economics, thinking that economics will talk about people and their poverty. She was a bit upset about what she was being taught, the good old Marxian economics was there. So she got a second class in the Skypass because she questioned too much. Okay, you do get a second, but then, wonder of wonder, she was not awarded the degree. And why? But Cambridge has not yet allowed women to have a degree. So she didn't get a degree. After graduating without a degree, she married Austin Robinson. Austin Robinson, you should know, actually visited PIDE once in the 50s and did a working paper type of thing called teaching of economics. So you should look up her husband. So she married Austin Robinson, and together they went to India, where Austin Robinson became the tutor to the minor Maharaja of Gwalior. That is where she observed more poverty and inequality and a system that blatantly exploited ordinary folks. They return to Cambridge. Austin gets an assistant lectureship. She gets nothing because she was a woman, and Cambridge didn't really like women until then. She had to struggle for every post that she occupied. She took a long time getting even what is called a tutoring fellowship type of thing at Cambridge. But anyway, she had decided to do economics and to stay on in Cambridge, which she did all her life. Now, the first book she wrote was economics. It was a serious subject. But then, the subtitle was an apologia for mathematicians, for scientists, and for the plain man. But her first theoretical work was actually of a standard and quality which could easily have won her Nobel Prize. You probably have heard of economics of imperfect competition. You may not have heard about other books. That is where she challenged Marshallian economics. You know the term monopoly. It was invented by her. You know Bugger-guide neighbor policies in international trade. This was her contribution. You know something called inflation barrier. This was her contribution. But anyway, she wrote this book, and there was a parallel book also written at the same time by Chamberlain, Economics of Monopolistic Competition. You know, they were talking about the same type of thing, challenging perfect competition and the orthodox Marshallian paradigm. She was all the time challenging, but once she challenged Marshall, Keynes, you know, was the most celebrated economist of Cambridge, and probably for that century also. Now people are rediscovering him. He had started work on his general theory. You see, this was the time of Great Depression, and Joan Robinson became part of what is called Cambridge Circus. She was a very active participant in that debate, which eventually led to the general theory of employment, interest and money. And she, now you can say that after Keynes, she was the most celebrated economist from Cambridge. Now, after general theory, general theory was about short run. It treated unemployment resulting from demand deficiency. And it was about short run. In the long run, Keynes thought will die anyway, so let's not talk about it. I think it was Keynes who said, never underestimate the power of ideas. So that is what Joan Robinson was all about, ideas. She quickly moved on and wrote a few books around general theory, Now, remember this term called disguised unemployment is also coined by Joan Robinson. You have been studying her without acknowledging. Now, she wrote 2 books which explained general theory, but quickly got disenchanted with the short period that it dealt with. So she moved on to long period and started thinking about how would long-term be explained within a Keynesian framework, which she found out was not possible. So she started reading Marx. And she read Marx, and she thought the only problem with Marx is the labor theory of value, rejected. But his analysis, and I think most everybody now agrees, Marx's analysis of capitalism continues to hold sway. But Joan Robinson reached actually a conclusion that socialism was not a stage beyond capitalism, but could be a substitute. And she started thinking in terms of capital accumulation. Another famous woman, Rosa Luxemburg, a Marxist of the Trotskyite line. No? Okay. She had written a book on capital accumulation. Joan Robinson was asked to write an introduction when it was translated in English, Rosa Luxemburg's book. And that is where she started thinking of long-term and the important role capital accumulation plays, and came out with a famous book called Capital Accumulation. Now you see, all these books present very serious analysis, but she does not use any mathematics, no econometrics. She's only thinking and formulating ideas and trying to construct models without mathematizing. Somebody asked her, "You don't know math?" And she said, "Well, I don't know math, that's why I have to think." Again, this famous journal, Econometrica, they invited her to be on its editorial board. And she quickly responded, "I can't be editor of a journal I can't even read." So, without econometrics, without mathematics, she was a theoretician par excellence, which suggests that when you are wading in the realm of ideas, you don't need these tools. And now, along the way, she was writing other books. You see, 50s and let's say 60s. With all these ideas about capital accumulation, she challenged some big names in the realm of capital theory. The famous MIT debate on capital, re-switching, and whatever. She was there. You know, she used to invade universities. She wanted to challenge MIT. She went to MIT and was right there and walks into Solar's class, and who was, you know, it was an undergraduate class. She didn't choose a graduate class. And Solar started writing on the board production function, the neutral production function. And she said, "What is this K? And so they say, capital. What do you mean? Capital what? And he says, machines, steel, whatever. And John Robinson said, okay, but how do you measure it? You're drawing the production function. But what do you say? A little bit of this machine will do this. That cannot happen. And then Solo said, no, he started talking about finance. And he says, okay, now you're talking about something different. She reached the conclusion, and they all had to agree that there is no economic justification for profit. Profit is not return on capital. Profit, like wages, is the result of the power structure that society has. Now, Hamilton, he had to construct what is called surrogate production function to overcome the objections raised by John Robinson. She even went to Chicago. And, Chicago students, you should know what Chicago is. She goes there, and before her lecture, शिकागो के सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने कहा कि इस बुढ़िया को हम सबक सिखा देंगे, और वो जब आई तो सब उसको यूं देखते थे क्लास में, तो जब वो गई तो सारे यूं हो गए. And Milton Friedmaniac statement that the theory is judged not by the realism of its assumptions, but the power of its prediction, was thrown to pieces, and she just walked away. Now, this Joan Robinson, coming to the book, I had to take a long route to the book, because the book does not have Joan Robinson's analytical stuff. It has something else. A theoretician of this stature also had a heart. She thought about development. You see, capital accumulation long run inevitably takes you into the study of development. And she started visiting China. First visit in 1953, second 57, and she paid 8 visits to China. After having read Marx and trying to elongate general theory, she had reached the conclusion that capitalism has one job. That is, that it does a good job of capital accumulation. But somehow that doesn't happen in developing countries. And for development they need a very high rate of capital accumulation. So, reading Marx, and there is actually an essay. First she read Marx, and then there is another essay on rereading Marx. When she reread, she reached the conclusion that unemployment in developing countries is Marxian in nature. That the available labor is ahead of available capital, and the capacity to employ labor is limited to that extent. And she looked towards China to actually test her own ideas. She had no knowledge of Chinese language, and she admits she didn't even know much about Chinese history. And she goes to China in 1957 and gives 3 lectures there, which are unpublished. I was responsible for bringing it in public domain for the first time. And in those lectures, she actually laid out what happened after Mao in China. But she was presenting those ideas during the Maoist China. She did not reject price mechanism. She used to say that this price mechanism is not about maximizing anything. Its beauty is that it runs itself. It doesn't require a democracy to sort of throw sand in the oil of the economy. So she thought a state which avoids the capitalist consumption, a state which through land reform in agriculture is able to extract more surplus, and a state which, while extracting the surplus and trying to avoid the unproductive role of the capitalist, and at the same time avoiding a situation that happened in Poland where workers actually revolted in those days against the very high rate of capital accumulation. And there was another stigma on socialists that they didn't talk much about population, which was a serious problem in China, because of the Russian or the Soviet Union. You know, Soviet Union had no population problem, so Marxists and socialists of all manner never thought much about population growth. But John Robinson said population growth is part of this equation because you need more capital per head. You don't just want to keep growing heads, but capital per head has to grow. And actually that was her choice of technique also in the famous debate in which Indians also participated. Okay, these were his views, and all these views had developed before she actually visited China. The contact with Chinese reality misguided her because she didn't know all that was going on in China. You know, she wrote this book on cultural revolution, which later turned out to be based on what she was told by the Chinese. She defended China, Chinese economic system, while a major famine was taking place in China, probably a famine the magnitude of which the world has not seen. So at some point she realized and admitted, and these are her own words, that she was in some ways starry-eyed about China. Now why did she do that? Well, these are the times when the Western world, led by the United States, was bent upon isolating China. And there was a term in those days, China watchers, you know, those who would study or try to sort of get information about China and would engage in anti-propaganda. But there were some who came in defense of China because of this onslaught. And some of them got carried away. Joan Robinson was one of them. She was no socialist, she was no Marxist, she was no ideologue, but she was an idealist. All she was interested in was poverty income distribution, and she thought a socialist alternative could resolve these issues. And why did she choose China? You know, she had visited India more than she visited China. I think you could say who has written an article on it. And, you know, in a footnote, he challenges me also and says that why Jeff Harcourt, my supervisor, keeps projecting my views on John Robinson in China. He wonders why she didn't pay much attention to India. You know, she used to visit Kerala almost every year when there was a socialist government. So somebody asked her, and she was very witty, not only that she waged wars on antiques, but also you have a lot of quotes that show how powerful her mind was. She was asked, why do you prefer China? She said, well, Indians are very rude. Now, some people think that Japan also presented the neutrality. And she said, Japanese are too polite. And Chinese, they're just right. Just right. Pragmatic. So if you, again, about economists, you know, she used to say that the purpose of studying economics is not to accept ready-made solutions presented by economists. The purpose of studying economics is to avoid being deceived by economists. This is what she used to say. Anyway, looking back, and I think I'm running over, looking back, we can say that she had preconceived notions and wanted to test them against Chinese reality. But the turn of events is such that her ideas was practiced after the death of Mao. And the conclusion of my book is that the two-line struggle in China, as it was called, between the right and left, despite her leftist views, in the Chinese context, she stood with the rightists. Thank you. Sultan, I want to present this book to the Vice Chancellor for the library.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm encouraged by the response that only one of you had heard of Joan Robinson. And Pervez, I was kind enough to send me a link to the book, which I read. I was not lucky to get the book. The Vice Chancellor got it.
The library.
But I made some copious notes. I'm not going to bore with those notes. But, you know, I've often said that my life is a bundle of coincidences. And my going to Cambridge was also one such coincidence. And I got selected for the Civil Service of Pakistan in 1955. And we used to have a 2-year training for the civil service. officers. And before I entered the Civil Service Academy, the practice was that the new entrants who were called probationers, they used to be sent for 4 months abroad for a study tour. Fortunately, when my batch went there, the government decided that instead of this study tour of 4 months, the probationers should be sent for a year to Oxford and Cambridge. So that's how I landed at Cambridge in 1956. And our names were sent to all the colleges for admission. And I got admitted in Sultan.
So we went to same college.
Now listen to me very quickly. Now how did I get into Sultan? Because Sultan was reserved for only Anglican Presbyterians. Because so the founder had desired. So when the names were circulated and it went to Sultan, one of the dorms at Sultan was one Mr. T.P. Hardy, who had served as an ICS in India. And at one time he was Deputy Commissioner, Moradabad, where he knew my father. So when he saw my name, he said that Sultan will accept him. Now I was the first Muslim to be admitted in Sultan. So that's how I opened the doors for you in Sultan.
Thank you.
And our supervisor was one Mr. Thatcher, who was the censor of Fitzwilliam. And I don't know why he was called censor. I mean, all the other colleges, they had the master. Now what we were told was that this will be a postgraduate course in public administration which we had to attend. And we were asked to attend lectures in international law, constitutional law, economics, and one subject of our own choice. So I had done masters in Lucknow University, so in English literature. That's why I was saying that I know nothing about economics. So I decided that I will attend a lecture by E.V. Lucas, Professor Lucas. And it so happened that I had read an article by Lucas during my higher secondary education, which was entitled Divine Leaf. And there Lucas has said that there was a Chinese monk, and once while he was meditating, he went to sleep. And when he woke up, he was so annoyed that he tore his eyelids and threw it on the ground. And after a while, where he had thrown the eyelids, his shrubs came up. And somehow he took the leaves of the shrub, crushed them and boiled them and drank it and kept his sleep away. So that was the origin of tea. And that is what interested me to go and take his lectures. For the international and constitutional law, I don't know whether at that time they were there, but the two famous Jennings, Professor Jennings, were there. Now, economics, the only name that was known was of Joan Robinson. So I said, all right, I must go and attend her lectures. Those were very interesting lectures, although I didn't understand a word of it. But I attended it because it was such a privilege. Now, reading P.T.'s Cells of Joan Robinson on China, although you've heard him, but it left me most disappointed. And for a moment I thought that Professor is probably his supervisor, Professor Jeff, persuaded him to criticize Joan as much as he could. And that's what he has done in that book. In fact, I read the whole book till I reached the postscript. It was only when I reached the postscript that I saw P.T. praising Joan, and that was only in 2017. What I was surprised was that P.T. criticizes her because somehow what he looked at was Joan's understanding of the communes as solely devoted to agricultural production. What I read about, in fact, it was my teacher and mentor of Pervez, who used to tell me in the 60s that the Chinese communes are the most magnificent example of a viable unit of development administration. And the communes really were a unit of administration where everything was devolved. They were totally autonomous. So much so that some of the communes started printing their own currency. And of course then the central government came up with a heavy hand that this does not mean, autonomy does not mean that. And after Amir Khan really adopted that whole idea when he was implementing the Kemal project in then East Pakistan, and he converted all the 410 thanas in East Pakistan into what he used to call the viable unit for development administration. And I don't know how many of you know about Dr. Amir Khan, but he was in the ICS. He resigned in the 10th year of his service, although ICS used to get a pension after 10 years. But he said, no, I've learned everything from the British, but they don't know how to help the poor. And that's how he resigned. And for 20 years he roamed around finding what he should do about poverty. And finally, when Pakistan came back to Pakistan, and then one of his batchmates became the chief secretary in East Pakistan. And at that time, the Kemal Academy for Rural Development was set up, and he called him and said, "Akhtar, you are a fool, but you are a good fool. Why don't you become director of this academy and do what you can do?" And that is where he took the commune idea and converted all the thanas into what he called it TTDC, Thana Training and Development Center. In fact, in 1970, I served in East Pakistan from 1958 to 62, and that is where I learned from Pervez about rural development. In 70, I happened to go back to East Pakistan just for the breakup. And Dr. Amir Khan asked me to go to my old subdivision. And I was surprised that the entire area that I traveled, there was limestone, there were no weeds, the agricultural development. And when I went to the thanas where they have this TTDC, which we used to call the symbol of development, like the commune, there were almost 25 government departments there. And it was absolutely buzzing with villagers who were coming there, getting instructions and all that. In fact, I don't know if you saw that book Mr. Aziz wrote on China and its lessons. And when he was in Ifad, he came and visited me in KRSP. And Tahir said that, well, because Dr. Nick always used to say that commune is 90% organization, 10% ideology. And Tahir was saying that he was looking for this model which could be implemented in the non-communist areas, and he saw seeds of that in the KRSP. Now, coming to the book, actually it is the postscript which really tells you what P.T. has just said to me, how much he admired Joan. And as he said that her two writings, The Accumulation of Wealth and The Economics of Imperfect Competition, that really should have got her the Nobel Prize. But she didn't get it because of idealism. Now, one thing which I learned from P.T.'s book was this is squabble between the rightists and the ultra-left. I never thought that there were any rightists in China. But it seems that the pragmatic approach of Zhou Enlai was dubbed as rightists. And in fact, and it's quite right, because maybe Joan was starry-eyed about China because she faced Cultural Revolution. But on her seventh visit, when she went, she saw what a disaster it was. And it was really Zhou Enlai's rightist approach which basically saved China at that time. So, then coming on a personal note, they say it is never too late to learn. And P.T. sharing your book, I told you I learned a lot. And making sense of the book on the John Robinson, I found it most readable, although most of the economic books that I pick up, it's difficult for me to comprehend. But I always wondered how he has written it. There are so million of references. Did you really read all those? I mean, you just look at it, it's full of references. And my God, I mean, it must have been quite an effort. But you know, P.T. is one of those economists, when he was chief economist, he really took interest in grassroots development. And he was one who got it included in the planning division papers, saying that poverty reduction to social equality. So P.T., I'm most grateful to you, and I think that I have not come across another economist like you. Thank you. So I thought I would better give you these views before I open it for
I think we have
question and answer and discussion.
then we can get the other.
So you're right. And most ill-brief chairman.
Sir, thank you very much. At this great age, I have been ambushed in the same way that we used to ambush our professors when I was a student. I did not come prepared to speak. And I must confess to you, I have read some but not all of PIDE's book. But what I have read, I have found to be very interesting and also very evocative, because this is a period in which I was also involved partly in economics and partly in other things, along with your distinguished Vice Chancellor, who will, when he chooses, tell you more about it. But these ideas were very current. And I had the privilege, just once in my life, of hearing Joan Robinson, and she was speaking about the Chinese Cultural Revolution. I would, if you pressed me about what she said that day, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because in my mind there is now very little distinction between what she said that day and the book on the Cultural Revolution, which I still have, although like any good capitalist production, is now turned brown and is disintegrating. There are a couple of things that I think we need to remember when we look at the subject matter that PIDE has so ably dealt with. The first of which is context. And by that I mean primarily not the economic context so much as the historical context. Now if you read through PIDE's book, and I hope you will, because it's A, very readable, and B, very interesting, you'll find that it discusses Joan Robinson's ideas about accumulation, not just capital accumulation overall, but under socialist conditions. She was opposed to coercive means for capital accumulation. But I think here is where we need some context. Her initial objection to coercive means came at the time of, or rather after the time of, that kind of socialist accumulation in the Soviet Union. And there, I think, the context is very simple to grasp in non-economic terms. At the start of the industrialization process, which basically Stalin squeezed the peasantry, all resources, in order to feed industry, and heavy industry at that. And the rationale was simple. It was later on justified in all sorts of means as being something that was integral to Marxist thinking. But really it wasn't, because as the debate of the time showed, there was more than one route to accumulating capital, even in socialist countries. But the real reason was, as he said in his speech to economic managers in April 1931, it's a rare speech because there is some passionate passages in it which you don't associate with a man like Stalin, but we won't go there, I'll let you look it up. But what he said was, we are 30 to 40 years behind the capitalist countries. We must make up this in 10 years or we will go under. Well, it was exactly 10 years and 2 months later that the war began, the Second World War. And for those of you who haven't paid it much attention, I'll simply say that that war was basically fought between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. The Americans and British were not exactly bystanders, but they didn't do very much. America was the main beneficiary, that's another issue. Now something similar obtained in China later on. In the beginning, given the existence of the Soviet Union, the Chinese had a certain degree of leeway. They didn't need to squeeze the peasantry quite the way. They carried out a land reform, and then these so-called rightist policies were adopted, and they were adopted across the board. If you read some of Chairman Mao's works, which were gathered and published in '57, you will discover that he's saying precisely the same things that Joan Robinson was saying, except that he's not saying them in a very economistic manner. However, when the split with the Soviet Union became visible, the same kind of pressures were felt in China as were present in the Soviet Union in the 30s. There was a Vietnam War going on. I don't know how many of you were alive at that time and recall that period. It was a period of intense hostility, of global instability, and of a global upsurge against imperialism. It's basically one of the key moments in 20th century history, which leads to the position we find ourselves in today. And that is why, one of the reasons why this struggle achieved an acute form, which became the Cultural Revolution. Now, it's not true that we didn't know exactly what was going on. There was a certain amount of information coming out of China at the time. And I'm talking about 1970-71, not even later than that. But very few of us knew how to evaluate it, simply because there was so much disinformation coming from the other side as well. So that's one point I'm making. These things took place not because somebody in China or the Soviet Communist Party decided this is the way to do it because it's right and Marx wanted it done this way, but because of the pressures of the outside environment, so to speak. The other point I want to make is not a point, really, it's more a distinction. I spent a certain amount of my ill-used academic years to look at contemporary China as it then was. There was not one rightist and one leftist wing in China. It didn't work like that. And before I even get to that, let me make a quick distinction between Joan Robinson's so-called rightist position in the Chinese context and the position as came up during the Cultural Revolution. The granddaddy of present Chinese economics, a man by the name of Sun Yifang. This person was denounced as China's Lieberman because of his promotion of the market economy as a means to take the socialist model forward, as happened in the 80s and so on. But there was a crucial distinction between what he said and what Joan Robinson said. Joan Robinson dismissed, and shows why, which I think is very apparent from Beatty's book, that she dismissed the role of prophets in the process of socialist accumulation. Lieberman and his successor, Sun Yifang in China, Sun Yifang actually said the following. He said, the economy is like a bull, and the bull has to be led by the nose, and the nose is profits. So it's not a surprise that he was denounced. By the way, he did survive the Cultural Revolution. Now there is an institute by his name, and there is also a prize that's being given annually. And I only discovered this yesterday as I was doing some footnotes for your book. So what Joan Robinson has given us of great value is not a defense of the Cultural Revolution. What she's given us is various routes which could be taken as a model for accumulation under socialism. You know, you might think this is very far from where we are today. Well, yes it is, but it's also maybe quite near. Many of you will have come across the latest work, now my senior years are catching up with me, this young chap who's written on capitalism, yes. Piketty's book, and there's other works showing that the market economy does not regulate itself and it doesn't work. The Vice Chancellor might disagree with me there, but we can have that debate at some other point. So that's one thing. The second thing, which I picked up just now, was this whole business of population. Yes, the Maoists didn't recognize the population problem, and yes, they based it on the Soviet Union. And again, there's a historical reason for it. The Soviet Union had suffered a major demographic disaster. It lost between 25 and 27 million people, conservatively, mostly men, during the Second World War. The results have plagued the Soviet Union to the end of its days. That's one point. The other is, yes, the Chinese dealt with the population issue very successfully. So successfully that now, today, 2020, they're facing a major problem ahead. Demographic problem to do with the fact that there is very little of a working age population coming up next. We don't have that problem, but then we basically use the wood and draws the water. Sorry, I'll stop there because one can keep going in different directions, but I just thought I'd bring some context to this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Now the floor is open for any comments, any questions. Pretty audience.
Sorry, sir, I'm also not an economist, although I think you got me in PIDE. First of all, thank you for getting us and Pervez for introducing us to this side of people. You know, none of us had here heard about them, and then getting someone like Sheikh Sultan and Honorable Sheikh Sultan for this thing and getting the background. Once I got this notice, I also tried to read who is she and what she is. And then I didn't do a good job, but then I saw some of her predictions. Well, like one was that, she was very fond of North Korea and said that, one day South Korea will become a part of North Korea or something like that. And similar things. Although there were so many commentators speak about her brilliance, but then maybe the conclusion was not quite there.
Well, there is a story that what was his name? Pervez and Joan Robinson were talking about Korea, and Pervez waxed eloquent about Korean development, and so did she. It only transpired later that she was talking about North Korea and he was talking about South Korea. But when she was saying it, the numbers actually showed that North Korea was doing better than South Korea. South Korea changed after that, what is the name? Park. Before that, it was not really picking up. So she was not very wrong there at that point in time. But of course, future had a different story. But nice to see you here. And if you think tariffs are not economics,
What is
And I may add here that South Korea really adopted the commune model once they came to Kumila and saw what Dr. Amir Khan was doing. And then they launched the Samolundong program. President Park used to meet 30,000 villagers every month.
I came here actually just like Manzoor Sahib. I thought I'd come over, and when I saw that Shoaib was going to be there, I thought we'd talk more about communes than about Joan, but actually we ended up talking more about Joan than we did about the communes. So I wanted to ask you a quick question, and I think it's more a question that both of you can address. And I think this is where people like us want a little bit more practicality in some of the discussions we're having and how we apply all these learnings. So coming back, I mean, if you were to look back at China, let's say post-Mao, Zhou Enlai, then Deng Xiaoping, and further, real market reforms are post-90. If you really start looking at infractions and comes around. So in your, you talked a little bit about the land reform, you talked a little about this. I'm not going to go to North Korea because, like your answer, I used to be in Libya at that time, right? I was living in Libya. So, Gaddafi was torn between various mantras of development. But just my question to you, today, given what we have already just mentioned, Piketty, what is the lesson from China really from the learning in the communes. I mean, you still just again said something about General Park. We're very well aware of, how Korea developed. People only remember the Kaibols. But I have now started looking at some of the ground development in South Korea, and basically it's kind of village-led, right? It's really devolving power to the lowest denominator. So I think I want to ask this question and maybe ask you to comment a little bit more on the organization of society than the accumulation of capital. So over to you.
But my reading of history is that what stands very seriously in the way of development is landed aristocracy and overpopulation. Now, dealing with landed aristocracy is a very difficult one. And wherever it has been dealt with, it has been dealt with by foreigners. South Korea, Japanese eliminated all their opponents who were landlords, so they didn't have this problem of landlords. Another thing is education. So, and this has happened everywhere. That's why I would go to the extent of saying, without a Maoist China, there will be no post-Mao China. That is my conclusion. That whatever his maverick ways of dealing with politics and economy and so on, what he did was that the landed aristocracy was almost destroyed. And somehow population was also eventually controlled. And once that happens, even in a purely capitalistic context, landlords stand in the way of industrialization. And you need a political solution for that. Economics does not do much about it.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but just a quick question there. Stephen Durkheim, here in PIDE 2 years ago, Sultan's time, came and talked about how British landed aristocracy actually helped and made a permanent choice of actually reinvesting back in Britain. So, ये थोड़ा सा कुछ फर्क भी है, I mean, if you look at it.
I don't think that is historically correct, but then we will be entering in a long debate.
Just to reinforce the point you made, it was Deng Xiaoping who said, years after Mao's death, without Chairman Mao, there would be no new China. So I think that supports your point, sweeping away the debris of history. Whereas, of course, in both Pakistan and India, we have not succeeded in doing this. And the only kind of industry that our landlords like is the sugar industry.
There's a distinction there.
So yeah, I think this is very interesting, taking you back to the past. But taking a couple of things. You talked about Julia Robinson being a major narrative on this, which is correct. And she was challenging stuff like this. But also the other thing that you mentioned is ideas matter. So in the realm of ideas matter, Joan was writing at the same time another famous economist. And both were narrative economists. One was Joan Robinson, of course, who was using the narrative that was Frederick Hayek. So in a sense, I think you have to contrast the two. And in the famous book that contrasted not Joan Robinson, but Keynes versus Hayek, Commanding Heights. The key question here is, Joan was obviously trying to propagate the leftist cause. And yes, she did very well. But the main point that comes to my mind, especially a cultural revolution book, is what Imran just said, the debris of history. I think development happens where you can wipe out the past. This is what the US did, because they didn't have a past, so they invented a past, Australia, etc. We are stuck with 5,000 years of history and we can't get rid of it. Right? So I think focusing on the communes as she did was probably, I mean, communes was only a step towards wiping out the debris of history. Communes are not an essential element. And what we seem to think that communes did, it wasn't communes, it was the fact that they wiped out history. The second thing is, when they wipe out history, they are able to prepare the nation for a capitalist mode of production. Because the capitalist mode of production can't deal with history. It can only deal with capital and labor and human capital and progress on to development through innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's where China has come to. So I like your comment on that. Eventually, it seems that Hayek won out and that the Hayekian model now survives.
Well, I won't get into this battle of models, but I also think that Hayek is a name that deserves restoration. He got a lot of flack for many of the things he didn't say. He was a great mind, but this question of wiping out history, that is going too far. We don't exactly wipe out history. We wipe out some institutions that stand in the way of historical development. And of course, on Hayek, I agree with you. Planning Commission wants to ask a question.
Please, please, please.
Thank but you, before you speak up, you yesterday or at some point you said you are going to work on growth or something. Well, PIDE has just published a book on growth, probably reprinted it, and we request you that we should hold a seminar on that book. Planning Commission should actively participate in it, and let's try to see what are the real drivers of growth. And you will agree with me, the drivers of growth as they are now is the Minister for Planning, the Deputy Chairman of Planning, and the Secretary of Planning. If these are the drivers, then you can forget about growth.
True, sir. To be honest, interesting discussion and lot of takeaways. On as far as growth strategy is concerned, we are in touch with PIDE and PIDE, especially Dr. Nadeem. He will be spearheading this thinking, this growth strategy. And yesterday we had very interesting discussion with Dr. Nadeem and his team. There are different sort of ideas. And it's a departure, as Dr. Saab said, we need to demolish history. I agree with Dr. Not history. Institutions are, as you mentioned, look, institutions both formal and informal, they are the issue. These are constraints in the context of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, South Asia. Yes, we need to rethink. We need to have new thinking, new beginning. Before we have decent standard of life in this country. Precisely my question, sir. I have responded to 2-3 queries. We are in touch with PIDE, and I informed my deputy chairman and minister. I am in touch with the user as well. And if you recall, I requested yourself to help us in this regard to formulating strategies. Incumbent government, they have some tall ideas, some tall objectives in terms of employment, in terms of housing, and we need to take country forward. As far as question is concerned, sir, for you, sir, you are admirer as well. I think one of few who know Kamila and who know Dr. Hamid Khan and yourself, sir. I'm also impressed by your work. And PT is my mentor and my senior. So my question is, I know you have almost addressed this, but I would request you to further throw light on this departing from history and to have a new beginning in this country. Thank you.
You read Nadim's book?
I have read.
Huh?
I was involved with
And try to sort of convert it into a set of policy actions. Sabha, here was a woman who was denied Nobel Prize and you won't even speak up.
So I do not understand economic models and I'm not an economist. But yes, thank you for telling us about Joan Robinson, who I did not know about before I saw your book that you emailed a copy. The debate we are having in this room today on the wiping out of history, not sure, but Nadeem, not 5,000 years, I think more like 1,800 or 2,000. The rest we are in denial of anyway. I was thinking that we are looking at everything as if the outside world doesn't matter. I was thinking of the Pakistan context, where the economy is certainly not managed by the Planning Commission or PIDE or economists. We know that the GHQ is where it is managed from now. I'm sorry, I'm going to be very open about it. So, under circumstances where the reality is very different to the economic models that we are debating, and where people who run the country do not understand the models at all, I'm not sure what we are debating in a country where the state bank and whoever else runs this country besides the GHQ. The models that are coming, how can we talk about all this in a vacuum? And if we even go beyond Pakistan, when one looks at India or the US, where the triumph of a different kind of very, very right-wing nationalism has taken place, that has made the economy secondary to it. Under Modi, the Indian economy is not doing well, but look at Modi's popularity. Under Trump, I'm not sure, but the kind of rise of the right wing, whether in the US or the trends that you see in other countries, Hungary, Turkey to some degree, all of this, we need to put all of this into perspective and then be able to talk or come up with economic models that would make sense. But in a vacuum, I'm not sure that we can do that. And that vacuum then, destroying history or like starting anew without history is the same kind of continuity of a vacuum. And I just find that to be not very feasible.
Thank you, Sabha. You give it a political economy perspective. Well, the rise of populism everywhere, and I think we are part of that silly populist wave. It will die out as it has in the past. But I must inform you that the last writing of Joan Robinson was on arms and development.
While discussing these economic models, I wonder if the Planning Commission, or future Planning Commission, have ever looked at implementing what Dr. Saab has been able to do in the Ahab. Same thing, it's a very successful, everybody agrees. I don't think anyone has ever questioned that. Why can't we implement that throughout the country?
We did try during the times of social action program. My view was, and it was written in the plan also, that we should adopt a participatory approach, and we actually invited Shoaib to be there. But then suddenly things changed, the government changed and everything changed, and in fact, when this privatization program started, the privatization law says that 10% of the proceeds will go to poverty reduction. Part of that money went to Shoaib's outfit, and when the government changed, the next government was after Shoaib, where is that money and what did you do with it? That is what happened.
I would like to request you, Sultan sir, your take on it. Why we are unable to take your ideas and take KRSP's ideas forward?
Well, all is not lost actually. And, as a great optimist,
Ultimate of
things go on happening. KRSP, of course, I started in '82, and then after 12 years, because UNMAR wanted me to take the lessons of KRSP to South Asia. The World Bank, in its two evaluations, in the first evaluation they said that the first 4 years of KRSP are the best 4 years of all rural development programs. The reason they gave was that the World Bank goes with the blueprint approach, whereas here was a program which was a process approach, going and asking people. And in fact, the bank later on introduced the CDD, as they call it, the Community Development. And in India then I saw great success, because I was sent to Andhra Pradesh because I was told that my file went up to the Prime Minister, that the UN wants to bring a Pakistani and let him use in the villages of India. And Narasimha Rao has supposed to have written on that he's not a Pakistani, he's a UN official, and sent him to my district. So I was sent off to Kurnool, which was in Andhra Pradesh, which was originally with. And there the success came because the government also adopted it. In Pakistan, as PT mentioned, that in '92, the government decided that we'll have a countrywide program and all that, but then the government changed. But then ad hoc, people have been coming. There have been chief ministers, there have been prime ministers, and although we never got that holistic approach as we did in the KRSP, but components of it, for example, the basic component of this approach, the commune approach, was that poverty is at the household level. You have to reach each and every household. Now, how can you reach each and every household? I mean, if you look at the existing pillars of the state, let's say the political pillar from Pervez to Patwari, or you look at the the administrative pillar from Pervez to Patwari, or the political pillar from National Assembly right down to the Union Council or to the village councils which Khan has introduced. But none of them have the capacity to reach each and every household. So the Amir Khan used to, and that is what the community said, that you have to have a third pillar, the socio-economic pillar that he used to call it, where you organize communities. And surprisingly enough, the Amir Khan used to say that this is not his idea, and that he has learned it from a commune. It was really like Faisal in Germany who came up with this idea in 1860 or 1849, that the poor cannot be helped individually unless they are able to organize. So that part of it has been moving. I mean, for example, in place of a KRSP, there are 8 more rural support programs and set up by governments. And I had learned my lesson from NRSP in '92. So their setting up is there that I asked them to give me an endowment. So later on, the government changes, at least we have the endowment to run it. And they have today, they have, I mean, this is, I will submit to the Planning Commission, maybe I tried it with the previous minister, I mean, the minister with the PIDE government, but somehow didn't succeed. And there are 8 million out of 20 million rural households in the country, rural households. We have organized 8 million rural households. And they are waiting that government, after all, what has government? Services and supplies. If they would use these organized communities, a 3-tier structure of community organization, village organization, and local support organization, then all these services and supplies which are meant for them to reach them. And you will be surprised when everybody decries sin. Sin promises, the only promise in the last 10 years had accepted this. And because in India I had only worked with women, and I mobilized 11 million women in Uttar Pradesh. So when I told the Chief Minister in Sindh in 2010 that I will only work with women, he laughed and said that, well, you can try, they will not even talk to you. When you go, they will turn their faces. And I said, okay, we do that. But yesterday we were again signing an agreement with government of Sindh, adding another 2 districts. We have already mobilized out of the 204 million poor rural households, that is 70% of the rural population there. We have already mobilized 1.5 million. And in 3 years' time we will have mobilized 2.5 million child. So it happens, but I mean what PT is saying, if the planning commission is taken it over, then obviously today the quality profile would have been different. So I'm hopeful. And I would be very happy to come to planning commission and meet you and others and basically at least inform you what we are doing and what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we owe Shoaib Saab a special thank you. He's an icon in Pakistan. He's done much for development, and mashallah, we are always pleased to have him here. So Shoaib Saab, please keep paying by the visit. People like you are rare and obviously much example to us on how to live a good life, a fulfilled life. And he, of course, challenges all the time through his newspaper articles. He writes very well, and always amused by his writing. He's the only economist who can actually put humor in his writing. The most important thing about us economists is we're humorless. But he will do us justice by putting in some humor in the writing. The sarcasm of PT is always very nice. So Shoaib Saab, PT, thank you very much for a very good session, and of course our visitors who come here. Shoaib Saab, we are trying to make PIDE into a very vibrant, beautiful place where good people can come and give talks, and we have 2 or 3 talks every week, and we are trying to engage people. But I think the saddest part that I feel in Pakistan is, among many other things, is that we are a silent society. AKSN wrote this book, Argumentative Idiots. Maybe you should write a book called The Silent Pakistani, because we have absolutely no discussion related to this country. When I'm in DC, I find that there are every day at least a few hundred seminars, every think tank, every university, everybody's holding seminars, and lots of retired people just go and listen to all the new and otherwise people. Officials are also doing seminars. In fact, I find that these seminars are overbooked out there. Here, unfortunately, the whole Islamabad hardly has any seminar discussion anyway, except for those raised by the donors. So we are trying to start a tradition of discussion, debate, dialogue, and thank you, sir, for participating and letting us move forward with it. I thank you.